Well, good morning and welcome to Interfaith Community Sanctuary. This is our fourth Sunday in December, and it is a very, very special time of year. Yesterday brought us the winter solstice, and if we can believe the Latin, the sun stood still for a moment, and like us in some ways, like our breathing, there's a moment where we're not breathing in and a moment where we're not breathing out. And solstice is kind of like that moment. And so for now, the earth is kind of slowly taking in a new breath, put it that way. So it's a lovely time of year. It's a time for us to be still, a time for quiet reflection. But it's also a time to gather and to celebrate. And to celebrate in our many different ways and with our many different traditions. Whether it be Yule or Hanukkah, Christmas, or any of the other seasonal celebrations, it's a time of year pregnant with meaning and significance. And for us here in the Northern Hemisphere, the darkness of night diminishes and the light of day begins to gradually increase. A time of transition, if you will. A fitting time to reflect upon our personal journey from darkness to light. And we can pause for a time for this quiet introspection, but it's also a time for setting intentions, a time for dedication. And it is this dedication that is our theme for this month, as we close in on our quest for our making a home for the mystic heart. And I always appreciate the fact that we get together like this because over these past 12 months, we've been together exploring ways that we can each, through our dedication to our path of contemplation and self-surrender, help one another to find a way to have that mystical union that is at the core of making a home for the mystic heart. So there'll be more about that in a bit, but first, as is our tradition, we start out by inviting in our ancestors and honoring our first peoples, and Joey has so kindly agreed to do that this morning. I have to turn the mic on.
Good morning. This day after the longest night, right? And here we are. Okay, taking a deep breath. We remember our ancestors. And our mind probably immediately jumps to our parents and grandparents and all those who came along in our familiar line. And then let us turn our attention to the sacred Mother Nature and all she has birthed over the millennia. Countless trees, flowers, birds, all the reptiles, all the little bugs and creepy crawly things, snakes, cats and dogs, all our wonderful relatives of the animal family. And then we think about just the natural world in general, the wind and the rain, the water, the sun and the moon, all of these wonders are part of our ancestry. Either they contribute to it through their light and shining ever presence, or we feel them on our face like the wind and the rain. We give thanks to our ancestors today and invite them to join us for this service. There is another ancestor of ours that was a great poet, and this was shared with me this week, and it's just very short, but I just love it. So this is by Jalaluddin Rumi. It says, "And don't think the garden loses its ecstasy in winter. It's quiet down there, but the roots are riotous." I just love that because, appearances can be deceiving. Okay. And for our Indigenous peoples, this resource is available to anyone. First of all, I want to mention that wants to lead this particular practice that we do. And there are other readings up on the pedestal up there too for the divine feminine. And so I grabbed this and was leafing through it, and wow, this one really hit me. So I hope it hits you too. This is by Black Elk, a Lakota Sioux. "Then I was standing on the highest mountain of them all, and round about beneath me was the whole hoop of the world. And while I stood there, I saw more than I can tell, and I understood more than I saw. For I was seeing in a sacred manner the shapes of all things in the spirit, and the shape of all shapes as they must live together like one being. And I saw that the sacred hoop of my people was one of many hoops that made one circle, wide as daylight and as starlight. And in the center grew one mighty flowering tree to shelter all the children, to shelter all the children of one mother and one father. And I saw that it was holy." We honor the Indigenous people. On this particular land, it's the Duwamish tribe, had been stewards of it for years and years. And so we think of them today, and we appreciate what they've given us. This land is so beautiful, so grateful that we can meet here. And then on a sort of, practical matter, I just want to mention that there is a site called Real Rent, and if you are so inclined, you can certainly donate to the Indigenous peoples and their fight for freedom and recognition, I should say. This sanctuary does, in fact, donate to that charity as well. So, thank you.
Thank you, Joey. Now, another one of our delightful traditions is making an offering to the divine feminine. And I found this poem an interesting poem by St. John of the Cross, and Dorothy has so kindly agreed to read it for us today.
I just want to say one other thing.
You say what you like.
Okay. I'm going to overshare. How's that? Okay. Okay, so I just was called to say the poem that's on Rumi's gravestone, because I love it. Come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshiper, lover of leaving. It doesn't matter. Ours is not a caravan of despair. Come, even if you've broken your vows 1,000 times. Come yet again. Come, come. I didn't practice this, I just read it once. So here we go. If you want, St. John of the Cross. If you want, the Virgin will come walking down the road, pregnant with the holy, and say, I need shelter for the night. Please take me inside your heart. My time is so close. Then, under the roof of your soul, you will witness the sublime intimacy, the divine, the Christ taking birth forever, as she grasps your hand for help. For each of us is the midwife of God, each of us. Yet there, under the dome of your being, does creation come into existence eternally through your womb, dear pilgrim, the sacred womb in your soul. As God grasps our arms for help, for each of us is his beloved servant, never far. If you want, the Virgin will come walking down the street, pregnant with light, and sing.
Thank you, Dorothy. I thought that was quite a lovely poem. And apropos to today and also to what I'm going to be talking about today. But first, we also have another kind of task, if you will, but it's another one of our traditions, but it's also a very practical one, and that is what we call sharing our wealth. And if somebody will grab the basket, we passed a basket around here for a collection of monetary donations, and we really appreciate that, and we really need it. As it's been said in every service here, this is now a 130-year-old building, and it needs continual loving care and maintenance, and care and feeding of the building, and also the programs and projects that we're trying to do here as well. It takes money, and put it to be a bit blunt about it. But if you're at home and we can't reach our basket, you can go online, and on our first page there's a very, very clear little donate button that pops up. Mash that little button and you're good to go. You can donate online. Thank you, Joey. But we also make sure we point out that we also don't only give monetarily. It's clear if you look at our calendar here that people give of their experience, their love, their time, to create a whole bunch of different programs that are available to us to help us in our spiritual path. And there's a wide variety of them, so you can pick and choose and find the one that best suits your particular interest. And normally I would go over them, but this week in particular, our normal scheduled visits are kind of up in the air, to be honest with you. I don't really know what's happening and what's not happening this week because of the holidays. So I implore you to go online and check out our offerings. There's an offering virtually every day of the week normally. I know that this week we're not going to be doing A Course in Miracles, and on Wednesday I'm not sure whether they're going to be doing the Mevlavi or not, but I doubt it very much. But anyway, again, please, there is a plethora of offerings there, and just check them out and see what suits you. Joey?
So our Ballard Food Bank donation drive is over, and I want to thank everyone who participated in that. We donated 150 pounds worth of food. So thank you very much for your donations. They were very happy to receive them. I dropped them off on Monday, and they'll have them in time for the holidays. I also wanted to mention that downstairs are a few items that are remaining from our bake sale. And so they're not baked goods, but there are some other things from the bazaar. Some wonderfully handcrafted mittens from a 90-plus woman who just cranks them out, and they're so comfy and warm, and just some other goodies down there. So if you have a chance to take a look and you would like to donate in that way, please do. Thank you.
Thank you, Joey. And in terms of upcoming gatherings, next Sunday we have a fifth Sunday this month, and next Sunday Jamal and Sally Joe will be heading up our service, and I think Ann Holmes Redding is going to be our guest speaker for the day as well. So that's next Sunday. And then I should mention that also coming up, it's slightly ahead of time here, but on January 1st, and there's flyers up available here if you can grab it later on if you like, but I'll just mention it, that on January 1st, New Year's Day itself, in the afternoon from 2 to 3:30, Jamal and Sally Joe and Pastor Dave Brown are going to be doing holding what's being called Creating Sacred Intentions. And it says here, come envision the future and inspire your practice to develop a more conscious and engaged relationship with yourself, each other, and the world as compassionate and caring human beings. Sounds like a noble effort to me. So that's on January 1st. Are there any other upcoming gatherings that people would like to discuss at this point? It's in the afternoon from 2 to 3:30 p.m. There's a reception following, Sally Jo says, with food and drink. There's flyers available for you up on the podium there, dais up there, if you want. Sally Jo? You want to come up and just talk about it?
So, hi, my name is Sally Jo. The Sundays just keep rolling by here. We're just so excited that we have 5 Sundays in December. And as George said, Ann Holmes Redding, who is the leader of our Friday prayer group in the Prayers in the Islamic Tradition, she will be talking about how she has integrated the annual discernment, the Home for the Mystic Heart, into the Friday prayer group. And then on the first Sunday in January, which is January 5th, we have our annual membership celebration. And that has been a tradition here for many years, where the first Sunday of January, our worship service is conducted by our ministers and officers, and we get a lot of participation from our congregants in that service. And we reflect on the year behind and on the year ahead a little bit with some visioning, and you'll hear about our new spiritual discernment for 2025 in that service. And then after the service up here in the sanctuary, we go downstairs for our annual meeting where we elect our officers for the coming year, and we go over our budget and just some of our general procedures for our council meeting. Everybody is welcome to that, and we would love to have your participation. We'll have some food, because it's a little bit longer time, and the meeting will go on a first Sunday. That is, we always do have our guiding council meeting on the first Sunday, but this is a special council meeting because it involves our election of our officers, and we appreciate anyone who can come and join us for that and be part of our annual membership celebration on January 5th. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandra. Oh, yeah, you can just
Put
move
that
it.
back here, yes.
Thank you. All righty then. So, as I mentioned earlier, we can view this Yuletide, this journey from darkness to light, in many different ways and through many different traditions. And while there are many ways that we probably could look at this season, we do have a limited amount of time together here today. And since I was raised in the Christian tradition, and since it's the tradition that I am the least ignorant of, I decided that today we would look at this festive season and this transition from darkness to light from a Christian perspective as the season of Christmas. And since this is a big world, there's quite a few ways that we can celebrate this Christmas season. There's room for gift giving and exchanging. The tradition of gift giving and exchanging is seen in almost every culture. Back in the days of the Greeks, they had Saturnalia, a festival of giving and exchanging gifts. And here in the Pacific Northwest, the native peoples here had a thing they called potlatch. I don't know how you pronounce it exactly, potlatch, but it was also another giving and taking and exchanging of gifts. So there's that way of celebrating it. And certainly I hope there's room for celebrating the birth of the child Jesus, which is the traditional, what do we call it, liturgical celebration of Christmas. But as we here this year and with our discernment, making a home for a mystic heart, we need to make sure that we find a place to have a mystical understanding of this season as well. And to look at this personal journey of ours from the darkness of illusion and ignorance and seeing it move to the light of spiritual awakening. It's a time, like in that poem that Dorothy read for us, there's a time to witness the sublime intimacy with the divine, St. John called it. And that divine intimacy, we have been calling making a home for the mystic heart. And we've been focusing on that mystical understanding, and it's been my charter to talk about this understanding every one of these fourth Sundays this year. Frankly, it's not always been an easy message to deliver, and I think it might even be a harder message to hear. It may well be that we feel that we have no room for our mystical search because of our busy lives. We may feel like Mary that we have difficulty finding a place where we can rest long enough to give birth to the divine within us. But it really isn't enough to be passive and wait. And why do I say that? Why is this urgency? Well, clearly, if you have found a path in life where you're serene and you are always happy and there's no difficulties in your life, then clearly there is no urgency. You have exactly what you need. However, this can often be an inhospitable world with little room for us to rest and just be. A world that overcrowds our minds and hearts with news and information, with tasks and responsibilities. If we find ourselves anxious, happy, unhappy, exasperated, angry, in any way unsatisfied with our life, then yes, there should be some sense of urgency. And it's for several reasons. One, it is our birthright. We could say that it's the very reason and purpose for our being here, for being here in form in this lifetime, to awaken to our true selves. And as we spoke on several other occasions and several other Sundays, it's to know who I am. Who am I really? And then to enjoy the peace and happiness and serenity that comes along with that. I believe that each of us has deep inside a memory of that primordial oneness and a longing for connection with the divine. I find myself calling that spiritual homesickness. But it's there, and we can access it. I said we could view this Christmas from a Christian perspective, but more specifically, I thought we might start looking at Advent and Christmas primarily through the lens of that 13th century priest, teacher, theologian, philosopher, and personal, close spiritual companion of mine, Meister Eckhart. Because Eckhart, his doctrine of the Incarnation is interpreted not historically, but mystically. And we could, of course, explore this unity of the divine philosophically, with words or as a mental construct, but that only tends to lead us to speculations and to abstractions. But we can explore it in a more immediate and personal way, under the roof of our soul, as St. John said, in our mystic hearts, as our own first-person experience. And we can refer to that unity with the divine in many ways, as a spiritual awakening, being born again, metanoia, enlightenment, the birth of Christ within us. The choice is ours. The key point is to have it be our own first-person experience. In one of his Advent sermons, Meister Eckhart speaks of Christmas and makes this beautifully but provocative claim. We are all meant to be mothers of God. What good is it to me if this eternal birth of the divine Son takes place unceasingly, but does not take place in me? And what good is it to me if Mary is full of grace, if I also am not full of grace? What good is it to me for the Creator to give birth to his Son if I do not also give birth to him in my time and in my culture? This, then, is the fullness of time, when the Son of Man is begotten in us. And it may well be that we're all meant to be mothers of God, but perhaps the real question is, are we willing and are we ready to be? Trappist priest and author Thomas Keating says, "The Church is hoping that in the course of the celebration of this Christmas Epiphany cycle, that we too will be awakened to the same perception of the divinity of Jesus." He goes on, speaking to our call of becoming divine, to say, "The substance, the question that the angel Gabriel put to Mary was, are you willing to become the mother of God's Son? How could she be the mother of God's Son without in some way becoming divine herself? Thus, the real question the angel asked was, Mary, will you consent to becoming divine? The second question that seems to be implied is, will you consent to manifest God in your body? And I'm thinking that we need to be asking ourselves similar questions. And that brings us to reason 2. Our world is a mess. Dharma has seriously decayed. We need to dedicate ourselves to awakening to that knowing of who I am really. We can be as doves from above, as a great company of heavenly hosts, delivering a message of peace and love to a world so full of strife and hate. Jean-Paul Sartre, in his one-act play, No Exit, famously states, hell is other people. But no, hell is not other people. Hell is whenever we start seeing people as other. We can only diminish, harm, and kill another human being if we see them as different from us, as other than us. We see our neighbors as others only from the perspective of our own self-egoic minds. But we see our neighbors and we love our neighbors as ourselves when they are seen from the mind of Christ, of Buddha, of Krishna, or whatever name and form we give to our union with the divine, and to that home we give it deep down in our mystic hearts. Making that home for our mystic heart and giving birth to the divine within us, to some may seem like a very long gestation period, but it begins with dedicating ourselves to a regular practice of meditation and contemplation. We can, now in this very season, choose to dedicate ourselves to becoming the mystic that only we can become. The Benedictine monk and author David Steindl-Rast tells us, just as we cannot leave contemplation to the contemplatives, we cannot leave mysticism to the mystics. It would mean cutting off the roots of human life. By putting mystics on a pedestal in our mind, high, out of reach, we don't do justice to them nor to ourselves. A mystic is not a special kind of human being. Rather, every human being is a special kind of mystic. I might just as well rise to this challenge and become that unique, irreplaceable mystic that only I can become. There never was and never will be anyone exactly like me. If I fail to experience God in my own unique way, that experience will forever remain in the shadow of possibility. But if I do, I will know life by the divine life within me. And that brings us to reason 3. Our precious lives are short. Eckhart Tolle says, it is not uncommon for people to spend their whole lives waiting to start living. Every moment, however, is an opportunity to awaken. Don't let the precious time slip away. And we need not wait. The theologian, Christian mystic, educator, and civil rights leader, Howard Thurman, he pulls no punches here when he, in his 1980 commencement address at Spelman College, he says, nobody like you has ever been born. And no one like you will ever be born again. You are the only one. There is something in every one of you that waits. Listen for the sound of the genuine in you. And if you cannot hear it, you will never find whatever it is for which you are searching. And if you hear it, and then do not follow it, it were better that you had never been born. Cultivate the discipline of listening to the sound of the genuine in yourself. If you cannot hear the sound of the genuine in you, you will spend all of your days at the end of strings that someone else pulls. We can have our own epiphany. Meister Eckhart says, and speaking of this accessible awakening, the awakening of which I speak, you might experience it before you leave the church today. You might experience in the midst of this very sermon. I've used this trite, but I think nonetheless valid adage that awakening to our true self, to experience the mystical unity, happens as if by accident. Our job is to make ourselves accident-prone. We experience that mystical unity, that divine birth within us, as a gift, an unannounced gift of grace. And here, now, in this very Christmas season, we can accept that gift. If we dedicate ourselves to finding a stable place in our lives, as Mary did, a place where we can prepare ourselves to accept the gift of birth of the divine within us. A place for us that is the inn, the I-N-N of our hearts, be it through prayer, meditation, or contemplation. With meditation, with our meditation practice, we may just find ourselves standing under the mistletoe with the divine. It begins with a kiss, a brief but intimate encounter with the divine. Then we need to choose. We need to choose to dedicate ourselves to bravely emptying ourselves of ourselves, to listen and to wait. Mirabai Starr tells us, you can start right here, in the middle of your messy life. Your beautiful, imperfect, perfect life. There is no other time. And the exact place you find yourself is the best place to enter. Set your intention to uncover the jewels buried in the heart of what already is. We owe it to ourselves. We owe it to humanity. And the sooner the better. Bear with me here because I love this little crystal. He literally says in this movie, When Harry Met Sally, I love this line. When you realize you want to spend the rest of your life with somebody, you want the rest of your life to start as soon as possible. And as we build our home for the mystic heart, we realize that we want to spend the rest of our lives in connection with the divine. We want that relationship to start as soon as possible, or at least we should. The 15th century Indian mystic poet Kabir puts it this way. Friend, hope for the guest while you are alive. Jump into experience while you are alive. Think and think while you are alive. What you call salvation belongs to the time before death. If you don't break your ropes while you're alive, do you think ghosts will do it after? The idea that the soul will join with the ecstatic just because the body is rotten, that is all fantasy. What is found now is found then. If you find nothing now, you will simply end up with an apartment in the city of death. If you make love with the divine now, in the next life, you will have the face of satisfied desire. So plunge into the truth. Find out who the teacher is. Believe in the great sound. Kabir says this, when the guest is being searched for, it is the intensity of the longing for the guest that does all the work. Look at me, and you will see a slave of that intensity. Now that's dedication. So we're going to take a little short musical break here, and now Steve was going to be here with us today, but he had a change in plans, and he can't be here today. But he sent me a file of his music that he said we could play. Thank you, Bryce. So I just push that?
Yeah, push play.
Okay. So we're going to try this. Give it a go. This is Steve Crawford in absentia. Thank you, Bryce. I think that worked out all right. We got a touch of Steve. Gave us a chance to relax. Thank you very much, Bryce. All right. So now, turning from the aspirational to the efficacious here. We just heard from Kabir, and he speaks of intensity. Eckhart uses unceasingly, Rumi, needing. Thomas Keating speaks of willingness. David Steindl Ras, challenging ourselves. Howard Thurman, cultivating discipline. Mirabai Stara spoke of setting our intentions. And I see all of them in their own way speaking to the dedication that we're talking about today. For, again, in terms of our discernment for this year, making a home for the mystic heart, we've been emphasizing dedicating ourselves to establishing a sustainable meditative practice. And the goal of any and all of the meditations and prayers and contemplations we have done here together is just for that, is to allow us to experience the union with the divine, and then to enjoy the peace and serenity that that brings. I think it's fair to say, we could say that that silent prayer or meditation practice can be our Star of Bethlehem. But it's not just for us. We need to use that realized peace and serenity that we find through our meditative practice to cultivate compassion within ourselves and to allow that understanding to inform our lives, our actions, and our relationships. Meister Eckhart again puts it so delightfully. He says, "What we plant in the soil of contemplation, we shall reap in the harvest of action, and thus the purpose of contemplation is achieved." So, while we continue to dedicate ourselves to making a home for the mystic heart, is there a practical practice that we can do now to apply compassion, that compassion that we have been cultivating, in order to help others? A gift I received, and I would like to share with you today, is a practice that I have come to use quite often, and I found to be both valuable and effective, a practice known as Tonglen. I first became familiar with the practice of Tonglen, which literally means giving and taking, many years ago, when I was introduced to the concept of bodhicitta. I first was introduced to it in this 1,000-year-old Tibetan mind training teaching known as Lojong. And bodhicitta is a Buddhist term, and it's a term for the mind that is awakened to the nature of itself, and as such, demonstrates compassion for the benefit of all sentient beings. A section of that Lojong training teaches that we can use ours and other people's troubles to awaken the compassion in our hearts. More recently, a Tibetan nun and author, Pema Chodron, she's made her version of the practice of Tonglen more accessible through her writings. Many of you may have heard of her. But whatever version of Tonglen, it begins with connection and a recognition of our common being. Julian of Norwich tells us, "In the sight of God, all humans are one. And one person is all people, and all people are in one person. By myself, I am nothing at all, but in general, I am in the oneing of love. For it is in this oneing that life of all people exists. The love of God creates in us such a oneing that when it is truly seen, no person can separate themselves from another person." And Tonglen, it actualizes that compassion that we feel instinctively when we recognize the commonness of our being. In the book Into Spiritual Meditation, which we've been using as a kind of a companion piece to our sermon for this year of making a home for the mystic heart, Edward Bastian says, when we look at another person with loving eyes, eyes without judgment, eyes that see things compassionately, it softens and transforms them in our sight. In the reflection of our loving eyes, they trust that they are loved. They soften towards us and are awakened to their own inner potential for being in love, both within themselves and with others. So, if you are willing, maybe you can participate with me today in this practice of Tonglen. So, if you will just sit now and relax, sit comfortably, at ease, but alert. Just close your eyes and just settle in. Start by taking a nice, deep belly breath. And simply begin to breathe naturally, breathing in and breathing out. Now begin to focus on your breath. As you breathe in, be present with breathing in. As you breathe out, be present with breathing out. Acknowledge thoughts and emotions as they arise, but try not to attach to them. Let go of them as you will, and then gently return to connecting with the breath. Breathe in. And this time, as you breathe out words that express love and kindness. Words like, may all beings be happy. May all beings be healthy. Use words like that, or whatever simple words you choose that express your innate compassion and your desire to help alleviate the pain and suffering in others. Now, visualize someone you know who is suffering, someone you would love to find a way to help. To begin with, it may be best to choose someone you know personally, a family member or a friend, someone you know that is hurting from an illness, a strained relationship, a difficult change in their life. Choose whoever looms large in your compassionate heart at this very moment. Now, once you have them safely in your mind's eye, let's link an intention to your breath. Purposely breathe in their discomfort, the pain, the confusion that you feel that person is feeling. And then, as we breathe out the calming, the healing, the comforting breath that we feel they may benefit from. As you breathe in, be mindful of the energy of the pain that you feel in this person. Bring clearly to mind the way in which you feel their suffering. Breathe in their pain as relieving them of their suffering. We allow ourselves to breathe in and fully experience the unpleasantness or discomfort that we sense in someone. Then, like with the solstice, there is a brief, motionless point where we are neither breathing in nor breathing out. And it is at this point that the vileness that we have been breathing in is incinerated in the cauldron of our compassion. What we breathe out then is pure white light. The light of empathy, of kindness, of love, that they can use to heal or for the highest purpose they may find for it. We don't take on or own the other's discomfort. We feel it, true. We feel it intently. The only way to fully alleviate suffering is to feel it. But then, when we allow it to pass through that cauldron of compassion of ours, that discomfort and suffering is transformed into loving kindness. As you breathe out, your compassionate heart radiates soothing, gentle beams of light that touches, reassures, and comforts. Visualize sending this person whatever it is you feel that they may need to ease their suffering. Breathe out that healthy, healing energy out into the world and towards that individual. Continue to just breathing in that discomfort. And again, through the depths of our compassion, we'll transform that discomfort into caring, loving feelings. Breathe in that discomfort. Breathe out loving kindness. Breathe in. Breathe out. Now, bringing this meditation to an end, just let everything go and relax into an open, silent meditation and sit with that for a minute or two. And perhaps we can conclude this meditation by dedicating by dedicating ourselves to serving the highest good for everyone, with an unrelenting determination to integrate our spiritual practice into our daily lives. Tonglen can be used just as we did to express our compassion to those we love and we are close to. Tonglen can also be used to help us to be compassionate with ourselves, which oftentimes we can find to be even more difficult. But when we can be present with our own suffering, it makes it that much easier to be present with the suffering of others. We can't know how or if this expression of our compassion will be received by the one for which it was intended. But from my experience, I do know that it will deeply affect those who gift it. And as Nelson Mandela is quoted as saying, "There is nothing like returning to a place that remains unchanged to find that the ways that which yourself have altered." So Tonglen may start out as a structured practice like we just did, but in time, with practice, it becomes our instinctive response when we encounter another's pain or misfortune. And it can also become a charitable response when we are confronted by difficult people who are rude or cruel or just plain ignorant. And there are no shortage of them. And understanding that destructive, hurtful people are woefully ignorant of their true nature can help us to have compassion for them rather than having us retaliate with hate and anger of our own and feed the already immense negative energy around us. We can talk about caring, we can talk about change, but as was said by one of our Baha'i friends when they were our guest speaker earlier this month, do not be content with showing friendship in words alone. Let your heart burn with loving kindness for all who may cross your path. This is the time of gift giving. We can give this gift of healing power of Tonglen both to ourselves and to others. So that brings us to our dedication portion. We've been following his Bastian's guidelines, and dedication is the end of how we wrap things up here. And so my bearing of this year's discernment, making home for Mystic Heart on all these fourth Sundays, has now reached full term. And as this is the season of gift giving, the one gift I would love to give is for all of us to receive the gift of finding that home in our mystic heart that we've been speaking of. That our dedication to our mystical path of contemplation and self-surrender bears fruit. And through the gift of divine grace, we are awakened to our true selves. You can call it Christ consciousness, Buddha nature, whatever we choose to call it. And remember that we are all the same one being, eternal, infinite, content with our lives, lacking for naught, wanting for naught, so that the fear, hatred, prejudice, demeaning and degrading of others ceases, and that this divine experiment known as humanity survives. And may we all strive to help fulfill the promise of this Christmas season and find on earth peace and goodwill to all. As we wind up this service, I'll return to Howard Thurman and this poem of his entitled The Work of Christmas. When the song of the angels is stilled, when the star in the sky is gone, when the kings and princes are home, when the shepherds are back with their flock, the work of Christmas begins. To find the lost, to heal the broken, to feed the hungry, to release the prisoner, to rebuild the nations, to bring peace among others, to make music in the heart. And I'll close with this benediction for one of Meister Eckhart's sermons. May the God who has been born again as man assist us to this birth, eternally helping us weak people to be born in him again as God. Thank you. Now it's time that we say goodbye to our friends online. Thank you for being with us. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. And as we say goodbye, we open the floor up. This is our time